Welcome back, YouTube viewers. Today's video is really a continuation of last week's video where I took apart the XLR I/O boards. And this week, I'm going to actually put them back together again. But like last week, I don't want to bore you with the tedious, repetitive tasks. So what we're going to do is fast forward through all those again. But before we do that, let's first talk about these XLRs and their associated PCBs. While the PCBs contain almost exactly the same components, they're obviously different due to the male and female XLRs. Obviously, pins 1 and 2 are reversed between the male and female XLRs. Therefore, the traces on the circuit board are going to go in different places. And so that makes the board layout a little bit different. But anyway, let's take a look at these PCBs and the options that Studer gives you to work on them. And then we'll continue on putting the I/O panels back into the panels and put it all back together. All right, so let's take a look now. Okay. So here is the input or female XLR without the shell on it. And if you look over here, we have our pins 1, 2, 3. Okay? Pins 2 and 3 have carried a signal, 1 is the ground. So 2 comes down to this pad right here, goes through a little wire that passes a couple of times through this ferrite bead. 3 does the same thing, passes through this ferrite bead, back down to the circuit board. Both 2 and 3 have a capacitor from there to ground, there to chassis ground over here. Okay, so then they go from here and they're going to feed over into the 25-pin connector, which is over to the right of this here. Let me just flip this over. Okay, so this is the back side of it. And what you got here is, this is that pin 1 again, which is ground, right? 2, 3, excuse me, 3 and 2, right? And there you can see they go down to those pads, which go through those things, and then they come out over in here, and then they feed over here and here, and that's those 2 traces going off this direction, which are actually the signal traces. Now what's nice about this here is there's this special pad that's done here, and there's another one done here, okay? And what the way this is done is it's made for you to cut across this pad right here, between the 2 pads. Cut this little spot right here in, and if you cut this, you isolate pin 1, ground connection, to the ground of the circuit, okay? So if you cut this one right here, pin 1 is lifted from the circuit ground. Now, down here, this is ground 2. You cut this line right here between these 2. Okay, this is the chassis ground, or the ground of the other ones, all connected. So when you cut this one up here, pin 1 is lifted, but the unit's ground here still comes from here and still connects to this one and all the way down, all the grounds. But it doesn't go to pin 1 because it's lifted there. If we do it over here, okay, pin 1 comes down here and winds up touching this pin 1. So all these pin 1s then are still connected, but they're not connected to the ground of the circuit here. So it gives us 2 ways to lift ground to this input. This is the output connector. Well, virtually the same happens here, but we have pin 1 over on this side, and this is pin 2 and pin 3. Again, both outputs are going through ferrite beads. Both have capacitors to ground. Same as exactly on the input. Now let's take a look at the other side of it. Okay, so you'll see on this side, pin 1 over is on this side now. Same thing goes on. There's a cut. We can make a cut here, which will isolate this pin 1 from everything else. or leave that on, and then it goes to this ground. You can see it connects to this ground here. So then you cut it over here, and it no longer goes out. This is the ground from the connector, or from the 25 pin connector. So it now connects here to here and all these other parts, but does not connect to the 25 pin connector if you cut it there. Cut it here, it's just pin 1, isolated itself. Down here, it's pin 1 of the circuit, not going to this circuit. Now, let's look at one more thing here. There's another pin right here. Okay? All right? And this pin is above the screw. The screw here is actually to fasten the plastic of the XLR to the circuit board. Okay, it holds it tight, and so you don't have to count on these solder joints being just the only thing that holds it on. But there's this one right here, and you notice this one is touching on this. This is chassis ground. Okay? Now, this pin serves two purposes. It serves chassis ground, okay, because it connects to there, and it serves for the lock, okay? So let me turn this over once again and take one more look at this. All right, now, let me see if I can get in here, and you can see, this is going to be a little tough. There, if you look between those two, try to point it out down in there, all right, there's a little screw in there, or a slot, let's should say. There's a slot, and that slot is connected to this lever. See this lever right up here on top? Okay, and if I take a screwdriver, we go into this little hole that's in over here. All right, you will watch that the lever will click over. That's the quarter turn. So this is in the open position right now, and this is in the lock position. So this does two things, all right? This locks in the shell, which I want to show you in a second here, and because it locks in the shell and it's attached to that pin, it's also grounding it. So here's the male shell right here, okay? There's the top of it. Now, if we look in here, we look around the back side and we come up here, right here is where that locks in. Okay, so when it's over here, it slides out through this spot right here. When it flips over, it's under here. You can see this has got a little lip here, and that's what catches on this thing. So it catches on there, locks the XLR, the insert XLR into the shell, and provides a connection from the shell to the chassis ground pin. Chassis ground pin then is up to the person to do it, or they up to the manufacturer, and they connected it to that chassis ground all along here. So these shells, which are ingenious here, and let me just get the other one. This is the female shell, and this is the male shell. And if you notice, they're really exactly the same. They're exactly the same. They're 1 inch here, 1 inch here. So you basically drill a 1 inch hole or punch a 1 inch hole, put these in, okay? The alignment screws here are exactly in the same position. So you could make the thing and you could interchange them. The only difference here is this one's got the little push tab. This one's got a release tab that's inside there like that. You push on the XLR, the XLR that plugs in here releases from that catch in there. And this one you press down and then it releases from the catch. So these are really nice nitric connectors and used throughout. And the beauty is because you could take a circuit board like this, and as you can see, these connectors are all mounted right on the circuit board. They stay on the circuit board, and it's all removed in one operation. Okay? And there's the 25 pin connector where all those lines are going to go to. And these pins then will interface off to the amplifiers inside the machine, whether it's record or playback amplifiers. And that's it. This kind of looks like it's painted. There's just a green paint on there, probably to denote what value this ferrite bead is. but they're actually the same all along in here. And that's pretty much how these boards work. Well, there's a good shot there. You could see that screw inside there, which is really just a little thing, and it only does that little quarter or eighth turn to lock those things in. All right, that thing's, just for the record here, that is also on the females. You just can't see it in there. It's too good. I'm trying my best, but you can't see that it's in there, but it is down in there. It's that fourth hole right there. And the same screws in there. You can see there's the lever right there to flip over. If I go in this one right here, get it on there. You got to get it on the screw just right. And tough to do this under the camera. There we go. I'm on it. Latch. Unlatch. Okay, so that's how these things latch in. Beautiful connectors. They work really well. Perfect for this kind of circuit board scenario where you have them all mounted on there. Now we're going to add the actual shells into the panel. So all we are doing is just placing them into the position they go. That's going to be female on the top and the male on the bottom. And here what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert the M3 screws that fasten the shells to the actual metalwork. 2 screws per shell, and that's all we're going to do right now. Now we're going to attach a insulator to the back of the PCB. This is so that nothing touches it while it's in the unit, or it touches another thing when it's actually screwed in, because the 2 of them are pretty close together. Now this is a little aluminum right angle bend, or right angle piece of aluminum that actually secures a DB25 to the frame, or to the actual panel or frame, so it makes it sort of sturdy. And those are the DB25 screws that I attach to this. This is pretty self-explanatory. This is just the other circuit board, same insulator being placed down. And again, the same thing, I'm going to place that little metal L bracket onto this circuit board too. Now I'll take the circuit board with the XLR inserts and insert it into the shells from behind, and then lock them in place with the little set screw that I showed you before in the beginning of this video. Now a little tip, one thing I encountered on this is those 2 metal brackets that hold the DB25s, what I'm pointing to there, that one and that one are not the same size. They're actually two different sizes. You could see the height-wise there. If you get them in the wrong place, which I did, I had to take them apart and put them back together again. So that's a tip to keep your eye on if you're ever disassembling this panel. Thank you for watching that video. I hope you enjoyed it. Now that those I/O cards are done, we finally can get a little farther down in the back. There's a lot more debris down in there. And I got to get around to this front yet. There's still the card cages that have all the audio and Dolby SR cards. And right above them, though, I still have that front card cage that controls all the transport controls and stuff. I've only done 3 of those cards, and there's lots more of them to go yet. I need to empty them and clean that card cage totally out. So we'll see what we do next week, but please subscribe to the channel if you want to see that. Hit the thumbs up if you enjoyed this, and ring the bell, and I'll notify you that there's another one coming. And thank you very much, and we'll see you next week.